More recently, I've seen from other media buyers that TikTok is just not performing. It's got good click-through rates and strong click-through rates, but the conversion rate is pretty low.
I've heard the same thing with TikTok, particularly like starting like around Black Friday, where everyone who was using TikTok as the bedrock of their social media marketing strategy or paid social strategy was like, this strategy is not working anymore and Facebook is working again. I'm not sure what happened. Like, I'm not sure if it's just, do they have a bunch of new users who don't purchase anything? Are there bots that are giving you a bunch of free clicks but not purchasing anything? Like, what is the problem here? But I've heard a lot of marketers or a lot of e-commerce businesses basically say, when it came to Q4, TikTok failed us and Meta was Atlas.
Welcome to Season 2 of Limited Supply, the place for refreshingly real takes on what D2C is really like.
We're your hosts, Nick and Moiz. Let's get into it and start making money.
Growing your business is hard, but Triple Whale is all about scaling your Shopify store to the moon and doing it profitably.
Okay, what I'm supposed to read is it says use promo code SUPPLY15 to get 15% off when you sign up for Triple Whale at triplewhale.com. But I really mean DM me on Twitter and I will get you 20%. I'm going to go fight the CEO and I'm going to be like, get 20% off of these guys. So just DM me and I'll get you 20%. Season 2, episode 11, year is almost over. You know, the Super Bowl of e-commerce is over. Things are starting to die down. There's probably a week of really hard work left in 2022. So we've got a bunch of stuff to discuss today.
Yeah, I'm excited. We got 2 weeks left, and surprisingly, I think this is going to be one of the most packed episodes we have this season.
Yeah, this is a good one.
All right.
Okay, we're going to talk about social media performance, and we're going to hit up the big four: Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, and Pinterest. We're going to talk about private labels, because I've started to see a bunch of stuff come out about that in the news. We've got a great lightning round where we're going to talk about everything from a new CEO of Honest to Kevin O'Leary. And then we're going to do a final segment where we talk about sites that we love, conversion rate optimization, answer some questions from Twitter as well.
Awesome.
So let's start with social media and TikTok in particular. You know, I've been seeing a lot of stuff on, well, first, you know, apparently like there's a bipartisan bill in Congress right now about possibly banning TikTok in the United States. What's your gut reaction to that?
There's like, I think 5 or 6 states that have already banned it, but that's the headline. And then you read the subheadline and it's banned on government devices. Why is TikTok on these government devices in the first place?
Yeah, fair enough.
What are they doing? I would expect no app other than like government official apps to be on a government phone.
Yeah.
You know, because apps like they suck data out.
Sure.
I feel like it's a political thing. I think all the states are red states that have banned it from their government devices. And I would imagine it's more of like a political play versus a, you know, let's actually take it off because it's doing something harmful. But that said, I mean, Trump got pretty close to removing it entirely from the country.
Yeah, that is bonkers to me. You know, I'm not sure how they can do that, actually. Like, they could do it as like a, you know, this is a foreign threat because there's like a foreign entity.
Well, India does it, right? India doesn't have TikTok.
Yeah, India does it, but like, you know, India isn't governed by the U.S. Constitution, right?
Yeah.
Like, U.S. Constitution says, hey, you have the freedom of speech and like, you know, you should have the freedom of expression of speech too, right? Like, imagine if the what can they next say Facebook is banned and, you know, Instagram
Unless Zuck
is banned?
gives us 20% of ad spend.
Yeah, that's right. And so I'm not sure how I feel about it from a legality perspective. From a, you know, mind attention perspective, I'd love for someone to take it off of my phone. I can't physically do it myself because I'm so addicted to it, but it's not good for my mind. I feel like every time I use it, I'm like when I have to like zone out when I'm done, when I close up the app because it can't be good for my mind. But I do feel like, you know, from a national security perspective, there are probably incredible ramifications. Like, you know, what if every single video they promoted for 3 days leading up to an election was Hunter Biden's penis on a lap? You know, like that would affect an election. Like,
Totally.
can a foreign actor affect an election? I think 2016 and 2020 have definitely proven that they can. Do we want to do anything about that? Yes. Do we want to ban things? I'm not sure. Like, I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah, I don't know how that's going to end up. What have you heard from other marketers in terms of performance? What I've heard is that it's good up until a certain point, but you can't get to the scale that you're able to get to on Meta. And more recently, I've seen from other media buyers that TikTok is just not performing. It's got good click-through rates and strong click-through rates, but the conversion rate is pretty low.
I've heard the same thing with TikTok, particularly like starting like around Black Friday, where everyone who was using TikTok as the bedrock of their social media marketing strategy or paid social strategy was like, this strategy is not working anymore and Facebook is working again. I'm not sure what happened. Like, I'm not sure if it's just, do they have a bunch of new users who don't purchase anything? Are there bots that are giving you a bunch of free clicks but not purchasing anything? Like, what is the problem here? But I've heard a lot of marketers or a lot of e-commerce businesses basically say, when it came to Q4, TikTok failed us and Meta was Atlas. It's the person who's holding up the world. And, the more pressure you put on it, the more strength it has to hold up the world. I think Q4 proved again that Meta's dominant. Like, if anyone was wondering, is Meta no longer the behemoth, the 800-pound gorilla in the room, the number one social network in the world? Q4 proved again that Facebook reigns supreme.
I've seen a lot of laziness into TikTok ads in Q4. I think one possible reason TikTok did really well for most people before Q4 is they were just putting more effort into the creative, versus I've seen a lot of brands just putting, a motion graphics background with text flying in, something that's not native to the platform. That's possible. I think another thing people could test is running the same creative they're running on TikTok on Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah.
We've generally seen that if you're at a 2.5% click-through rate, you can usually get to double that when you use a TikTok creative on Facebook and Instagram. And then the last thing I think is I've always looked at TikTok organically. If a product goes viral organically, it does really well to sell a product out. If you find something organically on your For You page that's gone viral, let's say it's a pepper spray or whatever it is, it's always sold out when you go and try to Google it. Whereas the inverse happens with ads, where the ad is a good conversation starter and good thing to put something in somebody's head, but doesn't necessarily lead to a conversion. And so I think the better way to run TikTok ads would be running it to TikTok has this product called TikTok Instant Pages. It's their own version of a landing page product. And you don't have a browser loading, and I don't think you get the pixel firing in your browser, but you can immediately just collect first-party data, whether it's an email, a phone number, in some kind of a cheeky way where somebody feels like they're getting something out of giving their email to you.
Yeah. And so do you believe that it's more top of funnel? Is that what you're sort of saying? Because it's sort of it's not leading to conversion. I wonder if at this point in time, people have realized, I go to TikTok for entertainment, like I would Netflix. And so I'm not in the purchasing mindset. Yeah. While when I go to Facebook, I realize I'm going to be, bombarded with ads. And so I may be a little bit more receptive to it. I don't think it's that, actually. I just think that on Facebook has a better understanding of every site you visited, your history, understanding what you're going to purchase and your purchase intent. So that's why they dominate. I don't think it's TikTok is more entertainment based. I do believe that TikTok ads are it is much harder to create creative. One of the best things about Facebook is it's super easy to create a square photo.
Yeah.
And then it's super easy to make that a vertical image for a story if you're just running static images. Static images can still be a material part of your social media creative strategy on Facebook. Right. And they're really easy to crank out. You can crank out 20 with Photoshop in an hour.
Right.
And the videos are really difficult. And so I think that's part of it is you're probably right. People are getting lazy because Facebook is so good and they're let's lean into the thing that's easy and performs better.
One thing we've seen is sparking ads has a CPC that's about half of when you run ads from scratch. So loading ad creative in and running it as an ad versus using a creative that's let's say you have cadence capsules, you send out product to 75 people, and the 20 that get, let's say, 50,000 views, you throw ads behind them, and the 5 that get 200,000 views, you throw ads behind them. Those CPCs are way more efficient. And we've seen 50% compared to when you run ads from scratch. And so I think a lot of people try to run ads from scratch. It's that's the faster way to do it on TikTok. But the more effective way is what you said. How do you get creators who are native to the For You page? How do you get them to create content that is entertaining using the product?
Yeah.
And then put ad spend behind that?
Let's pivot a little bit to Facebook for a second. One of the old strategies on Facebook used to be run ads to your best customers. You've got a new creative. Okay, spend $100 on your best customers. And what they will do is every single comment will be, I love this product. I love this product. I love this product. It's the greatest thing in the whole world. This supplement fixed my teeth. I no longer get cavities. It's amazing. And then what you do is you change the audience and you go from a retention audience to a prospecting audience. Because then when the prospecting audience is looking at your ads, they see really positive comments from customers that you've sort of selectively picked to post fantastic comments.
Yeah.
And that used to be an old strategy with Facebook. And it sounds like that's a little bit of the same motivation here, which is you want someone who's put a lot of engaging stuff out there and you want to promote those posts. When I was running ads a long time ago, 5 or 6 years ago at Native, there was this one Canadian company. They were like, we're spending more than $100 million a year on nutraceuticals. And they're like, what we will do is when we create an ad, we've tested this and it works. We'll actually create 100 of these algorithmically. We'll create 100 of the exact same one. And the one that gets the more positive feedback right out of the gate is the one that we'll stick with, and we'll turn off the other 99, because that one that had positive feedback and positive engagement really early on in the first 25 minutes of launching it, the Facebook algorithm is like, this ad is a good ad. People actually want to consume this content. And the other 99, even though it's the exact same creative, the exact same text, everything's the same, it just didn't get engagement right out of the gate.
Right.
Or it got somebody that said, don't show me this ad. It got negative feedback, God forbid. And then they're like, we got to turn all those off because those are all garbage compared to this one stellar one. Which I thought was a really interesting way of doing this.
Yeah, we used to do that at Hint. We would use this tool called Ad Espresso. And you could put in, 3 or 4 images, 3 or 4 headlines, 3 or 4 ad text. It would churn out, 96 creatives, and we would launch it with $5,000 in spend. And by the end of the first day of running, it was pretty clear, like which ones are the winners and which ones are not. And so then you would turn off probably half. The next day you'd turn off half again. And, then you're down to like 20, and then you basically scale it down to 5, and then you crank it up to 30K a day for the ad set.
Yeah.
And then also on the engagement thing, that totally works. I think on any platform that works.
Yeah.
Anytime there's social proof. In fact, one thing we've been doing with some of our clients on 1180 is we'll not include exclusions for customers, simply because people will comment with a question of, is there a lot of sugar in this? Does this taste sweet? Is this compatible with my mattress, for example? And existing customers will jump in and respond and be the advocates or the evangelists of the product or the brand.
That's so true. It happens all the time. To be honest, the exclusions don't work as well as I thought that they would work.
Especially not now.
Yeah, and so as a result, even if you are excluding, you still have your existing customers entering the conversation and either advocating or destroying your brand, depending on whether they love it or not.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's what we used to do at Facebook. I remember Ad Espresso. That guy, I was sitting at
Massimo, right?
Yeah, that's right. I worked out of this really crappy but amazing co-working space in San Francisco called the Founders Dojo.
Yeah.
And it was me, actually Sam Parr was there, and so was this guy who started some leather goods business, and a guy who started this Amazon consulting business. And all of us built big businesses out of the crappiest co-working space possible. But he came by and he's like, let me walk you through Ad Espresso. And I'll never forget this lesson he taught me, which is he's like, here are 2 photos that were used on Facebook, and all the text around them was the same. Which photo do you think did better in terms of creative? And everyone was like, the one that looks really nice that obviously you had a professional photographer do, and not the one that looks like it was drawn by a 6-year-old that's a stick figure.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, it's the stick figure. And this is proof that you have no idea what will work better. No matter how many, he's like, I've seen hundreds of millions of dollars in spend. I still wouldn't know which one works better. And so don't have the arrogance to think that what works better. You're trying to judge how 10 million people will react based on your own gut instinct. And that's virtually impossible. Not completely impossible, but virtually impossible. And so don't have that type of arrogance. There were so many ad platforms like that, like Ad Espresso. There was another one called Nanigans.
Yep.
They all disappeared because the Facebook ad manager got so good.
Yeah.
But for a while, they were like dominating the platforms.
Yeah. And also one side note on that is we've been having this discussion with some of our clients lately, which is like, they'll say kind of something similar, like, oh, we want the most beautiful shot. We want the perfect creative to be, the one that runs in the ad. And we'll run something, whether it's a promotion or a creative that's like slightly not perfection, because we know that it's going to perform better than something that looks like it's out of a catalog.
Yeah.
And, their first instinct is always, well, what about our brand equity? Yeah. It's like, well, what brand equity with no customers are you talking about?
When people say brand equity, I'm like, money is your brand equity.
Yeah.
Okay? Like, you want to grow this business, right? You want sales, or do you want to fundraise and get diluted?
Right.
And so you own 0% of it.
Exactly.
And so I'm not sure, there is some slight balance. Yeah, I wouldn't want to be like, I'm going to shoot this dog if you don't purchase this product. Although I've thought about saying that. What works.
Exactly.
So don't stop it. Like, don't shoot. It's already hard to win on these marketing platforms. If you're fighting a battle with one hand tied behind your back, you have no chance.
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
Okay, let's pivot a little bit, but stay within social media and talk about Twitter. because we had this conversation earlier today, and I've seen this on Twitter myself and like the e-commerce community, which is a bunch of drop shippers are now all over Twitter advertising, obviously Chinese made products, drop shipped to your home for $1.99. They're like, here's this beautiful watch that I'm like,
it's normally $75.
Yeah.
You'll get it for $49.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. This is the first time I've seen that on Twitter. In fact, I've never seen e-commerce ads on Twitter. I've tried it once and it was a spectacular failure. I spent a couple $100 pre Elon Musk owning Twitter. Is Twitter now a viable platform? Do you know anyone doing this?
I don't. I have run Twitter ads in the past and never really had a good result. In fact, running Twitter ads is what got me to understand how to better use Twitter as a platform. I realized that the click-through rate was so low, and it's because people don't want to leave the platform necessarily.
Yeah.
The platform is built in a way where all the information should be within the app versus having to click out and go to a browser. And so running Twitter ads 5 or 6 years ago actually gave me the insight to change the way that when we were at Hint, how we use Twitter as a distribution platform. But I've seen the same thing. I mean, there's fidget spinners, there's little drones that you throw and they come back. They're all selling right now, drop shipping products with, timers when you get to the PDP. So it made me think earlier today, like we should probably start running ads on Twitter. Yeah. And, if these guys can afford it, like these guys, we know their margins are 10% maybe. Yeah. And so if they can afford it and it's working for them, there's probably a good chance it could work. My hunch is that there's been some development around like the Pixel and around how good the engine is to serve ads. I do remember Elon's tweeted here and there about like how accounts are recommended and how tweets are recommended within a feed and how your algorithm is created. And so he did also mention that he wants to combine the way that these models work versus having a separate model for advertising, a separate model for tweet recommendations. So it's possible that the engine has just gotten stronger.
It blows my mind that could have happened in 2 months that he's owned Twitter. And frankly, Twitter doesn't have enough pixels across the internet to have information as to like, he could have made the engine better, but Twitter pixel doesn't live on 90% of Shopify stores, I bet. Even Pinterest pixel lives on 90% of Shopify stores. Facebook pixel lives on 100. So I don't believe that they've got the information and the understanding of their users. Twitter for a long time didn't know your birthday and didn't know your gender. And so I don't think they've got the information to do a good job of targeting ads. What I think has actually happened is there are so many larger multinational corporations have abandoned the Twitter platform until they understand how the Elon Musk acquisition is going to shake out, that CPMs have collapsed. And, there was rumors that they were matching your spend dollar for dollar. So if you agreed to spend $1 million in December 2022, they would give you a free $1 million in spend in January 2023.
Wow.
Because they're like, we need you to spend money now. Because, the GMs of the world have left and they're waiting to see how things shake out. And so they were like, look, our ad volume has gone down so much. I think that's actually what's happened is their ad sales have done so poorly that they're trying to encourage direct response advertisers to get on Twitter, and CPMs have gone down so much that, direct response advertisers are finding a little bit of success there.
Wow. Well, I'll be jumping on Twitter ads tonight before I sleep. Setting up some accounts.
Yeah. Okay, let's do one more pivot, which is Pinterest. So I recently had lunch with this guy who's like, he's like, I see $1 billion of ad spend every year. I see it going through a platform, and he's like, it's international ad spend. He's like, generally, people have said, the best social platforms are Facebook, TikTok, Snap, and then Pinterest. I've always thought Pinterest ad platform is better than the Snap ad platform, or has been more direct response positive. From everyone I've heard, or from a bunch of people I've heard from, this Q4, Pinterest has been a complete disaster. They've announced one new feature. Like, on Facebook ads, if you say, I want to spend $100 today on an ad, it'll go up or down a little bit. It's not exactly 100. They don't spend $100 exactly.
Right.
In the past, Pinterest has always spent exactly $100. They would never spend a penny more or a penny less until now they created a beta where they will spend a penny more or a penny less. I've heard from people. What does that
do for the ads, or like how does that run the ads differently?
Basically, where they're like on the weekends, like Pinterest has more impressions on Sundays than any other day. So if your budget is $100 on Monday and $100 on Sunday for the same ad, which it probably is because you're not adjusting budgets every 24 hours.
Right.
Well, guess what? On Sunday, it could have probably shown to more people, and you could have gotten better. You could have spent $125 or even a little bit more money and had good results. And on Monday, when there's fewer people using Pinterest, maybe you should have have only spent $85. And that $15 would be better allocated to Sunday than Monday. And Pinterest is like, we will do that automatically and allocate it to the correct day, except they're not doing it well. And it's been a disaster.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
Yeah, it's very Pinterest of them, actually.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever had a brand find success on Pinterest. We've worked with a spirits brand where we ran basically Pinterest ads to like advertorials.
Yeah.
And that worked okay, but the goal was not conversion. It was like getting somebody to click on a store locator. Yeah. So that did well. I think we had like a 5-minute time on site, which was solid, but there was no conversions directly.
Yeah. This is a great time to talk about that story that you were telling me just before we started.
Yeah. So there's this tequila brand that we used to work with. Basically what their goal was to sell more cases in retail. So they have distribution in Costco, Sam's Club, Walmart, Target, and they do sell online through Reserve Bar. But what we were trying to do was get more people in the store. So what we did was we set up these landing pages based on different states. So, if you're in California, you get to a landing page, it's got tequila the way that California drinks it, versus Texas, it's like a different way that Texas drinks tequila. On that landing page, you've got your standard landing page modules, a hero, whatever. And then the goal was always to get a click into a store locator to find it near you. So what we did was we would run them as conversion ads on Facebook. We would set the conversion event to be pixeled behind the button that clicks to the store locator. So in Facebook's mind, once somebody clicks the ad, the next conversion is like they get to the landing page and click that button. So they're running the same thing now under a new holding company. They got acquired. And they were at like a 5.5% click-through rate on the ad when we were running. And that was actually through TikToks. So we would take the best performing TikToks, run them on Facebook. And that's how we got 5.5% click-through rate. Combined with the fact that it was a conversion campaign, they decided, they're old school alcohol marketers. So they're now running it as reach and frequency. And they have a 0.43% click-through rate. They're spending 4 times as much. They're getting no increase in sell-through volume of cases in their retail.
Of course.
And they can't seem to figure out why they're not able to get this. And it reminded me that defining your conversion event as a business, whether you are selling in retail, whether you're selling B2B and you're trying to get leads of offices or restaurants to buy your product, or you're selling on e-commerce, defining the conversion event and making sure that the ad platforms know that you are tracking this against a KPI, some sort of a conversion KPI, makes a huge difference in the audience that your ad is served to. So if you're running a reach and frequency ad or even like an engagement or a traffic campaign, you generally get shitty audience. That's who Facebook says, all right, well, we're not even going to show the ad to our best people because we're going to save that for people who are willing to spend double or triple on CPM. We're just going to show this to more audiences that we know will click and then they'll get to the site and leave.
Yeah, Facebook once told me that they're like 20% of our users are buyers and 80% are never buyers on the internet. Mm-hmm. And so everyone wants those 20% of people who will shop, spend money or open up their credit card. 80% is for reach and frequency. But yeah, you have to define a conversion event. And if you don't, you're just spending money you're throwing money into the ether.
And everybody, like all these agencies call it middle of funnel. It's like traffic that hits your site and just never comes back.
Yeah.
I think it's just waste of money.
Yeah.
It's a total waste of money.
Yeah. It's also like, you call it middle of funnel and you're like, how do I track what middle of funnel is?
Right.
Are you really tracking if someone clicked the top of funnel, then middle of funnel, and then bottom of funnel? Like, how did you track one person across all 3 of these touch points?
Yeah.
There's a lot of magic, especially when agencies are doing it. They're like, this is the magic that we do. And you're like, no, this is the numbers you made up so that you can justify
add your percent of spend.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Growing your direct-to-consumer business can be tough. Having out-of-date or inaccurate data makes it even harder. That's why I'm using Triple Whale. Their customer insights, attribution, and profit tracking means I can scale my Shopify stores to the moon.
Get a walkthrough on how Triple Whale can help you scale your store. Use promo code SUPPLY15 to get 15% off when you sign up at triplewhale.com. Or you can DM me on Twitter and I'm going to fight for 20% off. Let's shift gears a little bit and talk about private label products.
Love it.
So one of the things that I saw about this, and I hadn't realized this in the past, is Edgewell has a very clear, Edgewell is this razor blade company, and they actually make the razor blades behind Billy. You know, Billy, like the women's. So they make these razor blades, and I didn't realize that Edgewell had like this private label brand, but they're basically like, hey, we will private label our razors and sell them to you under whatever brand you want. And I knew that Billy was using Edgewell in the past, and Edgewell ended up acquired. Yeah, and Edgewell ended up acquiring Billy. But I never realized that they had this program where, like, you could just contact them. Their email address is privatebrandsgroup@customerfollowup.info, which is weird. And also PBG, Private Brands Group Inquiries @edgewell.com. They're actually like, hey, we want to encourage other brands to develop products on the backs of our products. And that's really interesting. I haven't heard Harry's do this. I'm nearly certain P&G doesn't do this. P&G owns Gillette. And so I was really surprised to see this happening. Private label is really interesting to me. Like Kirkland, Kirkland is like Costco's private label brand, and they like to private label everything. And there was an article I once read that said they wanted private label diapers. And there's really only two companies that make diapers, Huggies and Pampers. And so they went to Kimberly-Clark, which makes Huggies, and P&G that makes Pampers. And they're like, hey, we want a private label diaper. And P&G was like, we never do that. We never private label our products. Absolutely not. And so Costco was like, get out of here, Pampers. We're not selling any more Pampers. So the only diapers you'll usually see at Costco now are Huggies and Kirkland's own brand. And Kirkland's own brand, at least was made by Huggies. Yeah.
Wow.
And so I'm always curious to see what happens in like the private label market, particularly as we're entering like an economy that we're entering today, which is a little bit less stable, and people may not feel as flush in their pocket as they did 2 years ago. So there was this great Wall Street Journal article that talked about private label products and the growth of private label. There was a Dutch supermarket chain that they said, okay, this supermarket chain in the Netherlands. They also have supermarket chains in the United States. So they have some in Europe and some in the United States. The ones in the United States are called Food Lion and Stop and Shop. Have you ever shopped at a Food Lion?
I've not.
It was a really sketchy supermarket store in the South. Like, it was in Florida all the time, and we'd go there, and it was really sketchy. But anyway, in Europe, 50% of their sales at their supermarket chains come through private label products. In the United States, only 30% come through private label products, which I thought was really interesting. Like, people in Europe are more likely to gravitate towards private label products than people in the US. They also talked about Carrefour, which is this big supermarket chain in the UK. 33% today of their sales are private label. They want to get it to 40%, I think, by the end of the year or by the end of next year or something like that. Maybe it was by the end of 2024, actually. But like 33% are private label, 40% by the end of the year. They talked about this other one, which was the most interesting to me, which was called Asda. I've never heard of it. It's the UK's third largest supermarket chain, okay? And they were talking about how private label makes up the bedrock of their business. They're like, private label is why we exist. And Asda sells a bottle of ketchup for 42 pence or 51 US cents, as opposed to Heinz, which sells it for $3.46 for a similar size bottle. Like, they're selling it for 1/6, 1/7 the price.
Wow.
They're selling mayonnaise, a 500-gram jar of mayonnaise. They sell them for 49 pence. While, Hellmann's, which is made by Unilever, sells for $2.40, so 20% of the price.
Wow. Not Amazon. Well, Amazon does this too, but Trader Joe's does this. I mean, 95% of their store is private label, and it's all basically the same manufacturers you would normally buy, except they said, we're just going to go to the one that allows us to private label.
Yeah.
And then, instead of 6 coffee brands, we just have one.
Yeah. And that's still a high quality one. They're like, we genuinely do real product development and manufacturing to do this.
Yeah. And the other thing that I've seen is like, they'll bring smaller businesses in to allow them basically cash flow while they build their brand. It's like, hey, you have a good product, you continue building your brand, we're going to order $1 million of our separate stuff, give you some cash to help you guys do that. I was just looking up some of the Costco stuff. Have you ever tried the Kirkland water bottle?
Yeah.
Like,
have I ever tried it? There's,
As a brown man, that's a rite of passage.
Yes. In fact, every time I go home, my mom is like, you need to buy 10 cases of this because you can lift it, and I refuse to.
Yeah. that's made by Niagara, which makes some of the best water in the country. Their vodka comes from Grey Goose. Their coffee comes from Starbucks.
Yeah, their scotch comes from Macallan.
Yeah, it is like the best of the best brands are behind Kirkland products.
Yeah. Kirkland is not, look, they do a really good job curating products, and there's a lot of brand equity in the Kirkland brand. I think it's terrible design, but like genuinely good products that people trust.
It's trustable by immigrants.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. You know who else was doing this? Walmart would be like, I think Target has done a great job of this. Maybe the best job, because they have a brand called Smartly, and they were competing against like home care and personal care and like fabric care products, and they're like everyone like tries to compete with you on formula, and no one spends $1 on packaging, and that's the real hard part. Like, you know, I want to go to Duane Reade and buy the Duane Reade brand because it's cheaper, but I don't want it to say Duane Reade on my, you know, like next to my sink when guests come over, because they'll be like, God, Moiz a cheap asshole.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, let me spend the extra 30 cents for soft soap, but not the extra 30 cents for method. Like, you know, I'm not going to spend 60 cents more. I'm only going to spend 30 cents more. Target did a great job of being like, we're not going to brand it Target. We're going to brand it Smartly. And we're going to spend a little bit of time on design. We're not just going to throw the ugliest product from some Chinese manufacturer. We're not going to be like, hey, Chinese manufacturer, what plastic components do you have in stock? Oh, here's the ugliest, cheapest one. Let's use this one. They're like, let's spend the extra 4 cents right now and make this product look really good. And so people will actually buy it. And when I go to Target, I'm like, yeah, I will buy the Smartly brand over any other name product because I'm not like ashamed of it. And I enjoy the design. It's like inspirational, or, you know, it's eye pleasing. Walmart did this with Native deodorant. When we put Native deodorant in Walmart, they created an Equate brand, which was their Walmart private label, and said like, compared to Native deodorant. And I texted my mom that, and I was like, I made it. No, I was so sue them. I was like, I'm so proud. I made a product that Walmart is now trying to knock off.
That's awesome.
You know, they spent 1 penny on design. They're like, let's do the ugliest design. You know, the point of Native is, aside from a very efficacious product, we wanted it to look really good. And these guys, I never bought it, so I'm not sure if it's efficacious, but I was like, nobody will look at this product and be like, you know what? I was going to buy this pretty brand, and now I'm going to buy this disgusting looking brand.
Exactly.
And I'm not sure why these retailers don't spend the extra 1% on COGS to be like, you know what? This 1% matters. How it looks on shelf matters. And you know who should know that? The guy who runs Walmart and the guy who runs Target. And I don't know why they don't spend the time doing that.
Ever since I was a kid, I remember Whole Foods had their 365 brand. Yeah. And I think they always did a good job not only merchandising it in the stores, but also making sure it's not like a compare to type of brand. Yeah. It's like its own brand.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Speaking of Whole Foods and Amazon, first, I think there's been a real Amazonification of Whole Foods, and like 5 years ago, you couldn't tell. And now I'm like, oh yeah, it feels like Amazon in here.
Exactly.
Like there are no people. Everything is self-checkout. I got to scan my Whole Foods app.
The way that the store is laid out is a lot more efficient.
Yeah. It just, and like, you know, it just doesn't feel as like local or any of that kind of stuff. But in any case, Amazon has actually been the one company that's reducing private label products, particularly this year. They were doing like private label Allbirds. Like they were competing with Allbirds for a time. And I think what happened is at one point they started using, like if Allbirds was selling on Amazon, or if you were a company selling on Amazon as like a third-party retailer, they took your data and ended up harnessing it for Amazon brands, even though they weren't supposed to. They were supposed to be like this Chinese wall between the two, and like they sort of didn't do that. And so, you know, third-party sellers got mad, and Amazon's like, okay, we should do this. And I think the FTC was like, we need to investigate you competing against your own retailers and what data you're using and what data you're not using. And so Amazon has sort of taken the pedal, like stop pressing the gas as hard, at least, when it comes to their own private label brands.
Yeah, and I think for them too, they probably realize like, well, if we're the ones with all the brands, where's the advertising going to come from? The advertising revenue.
Yeah, that's true. But I think that, like, you know, they're like, look, our margin on our own brands is 80% probably.
Yeah,
like,
or they're just like, damn, this shit is hard.
Yeah, that could be it as well. But I think like, you know, Costco supposedly has their own farms to make rotisserie chickens. Like they own the farm.
You know, that's their best-selling product.
The rotisserie chicken.
I
mean, I wouldn't be.
In Trader Joe's, it's the orange chicken.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Wow, people love chicken
by a lot.
You know, at Amazon, I wouldn't be surprised if they're like, we're going to own our own battery manufacturer, because they must sell so many batteries at this point. It doesn't make sense to private label anymore. Like they can eat 80% of the margin rather than 40% of the margin.
Totally.
But the one thing that I've realized is whenever there's a recession, this happened. I don't think you'll remember this, but back in like 2006, 2007, there was the great financial crisis, and brands like Tide came out with Tide Basic and Bounty Basic because they were like, we need to appeal to customers who are cautious about their cash, and they're going to go for the Equate laundry detergent rather than Tide, and so we want to create a level lower than Tide, so we can reduce our costs, and when the recession is over, we can basically phase out Tide Basic. And Tide Basic was like yellow in color, not Tide Orange in color. And so people reach for it because it'd be between Equate and Tide. And then like when the recession was over, Tide's like, we're done with this basic stuff. Give us back our money.
Formula, was it the same formula, just different color?
I'm not sure if it was the same formula or different color. I would imagine it's slightly different because like P&G is generally like has a lot of integrity when it comes to that kind of stuff. But they weren't like, you know what, let's make a really shitty laundry detergent. Because they're like, we have the brand equity of Tide here.
Right.
Maybe it's a little bit cheaper for them to make. And maybe instead of 80% water, it's 82% water. Sure. And maybe instead of 1% terrible chemicals, it's 2% terrible chemicals. But I bet it was in that vein.
Yeah.
But the one thing I've realized when it comes to private label is like, I never want to compete on price. Like Dollar Shave Club was all about, we're going to compete on price and be the cheapest guy out there. Wish is going to beat you. Some Chinese manufacturer. Wish's number one product, you were talking about chicken, and Wish's number one product for a while was 400 toothbrushes for like $1.75.
Wow.
Which is, forget about using a toothbrush for 3 months. You only have to use it for one day, and it's like a very good cost-effective toothbrush if you buy it from Wish. I never want to compete on price because somebody's going to beat you there.
I couldn't agree more. And it's just a race to the bottom.
Yeah, complete race to the bottom.
Yeah.
Okay, let's switch to the lightning round. A bunch of stuff happened. One is interest rates. Interest rates went up by 0.5% today. Basically, the Fed has announced that, hey, we are going to keep interest rates going up because we think we think inflation is still really bad. Everyone else is sort of priced in the idea that in 6 months, the Fed is going to change their mind and they're going to start bringing interest rates down again. I don't have that opinion. Inflation is still 7%, which is an ungodly amount. Mm-hmm. Like you need to get a 7% raise. In order for you not to have a raise between 2022 and 2023, you need a 7% raise in order for you not to make any more money technically.
Right.
And that is just too much. That's too expensive, I think.
Yeah, that's a lot.
And so I think the Fed is, I have a contrarian opinion.
What was the thing that you tweeted about your, you tweeted something about like locking up property or trading property?
Yeah, some guy emailed me, and I've invested with this guy in the past, and he's like, hey, we have this opportunity. You can loan us money on our real estate portfolio for 6% interest a year. So basically give us $100,000. At the end of next year, we'll give you $6,000. And, you can't ask for your money back early, and we could lose this money. And if anything goes wrong, you might lose money. And, you're guaranteed to get, otherwise you'll get 6%. And I'm like, the US government is offering me 5%. And the US government has no chance of going bankrupt. They're risk proof. And I can, like, if I need the cash all of a sudden right away, I can just sell it. Tomorrow, I can sell it and get cash.
Yeah.
Like, let's say I want to go buy a house or a car or, sign up for a Yapo and be able to afford it. I can sell my U.S. Treasury and go and pay those guys.
Yeah.
But, this guy was like, hey, it's 6%. And we'll give it to you in a year, and maybe we'll give it to you in a year. Like there's risk, real estate could crash, and then you're fucked.
Right.
Someone could have committed fraud, and then you're fucked. The interest rates could go up a lot, and you can't. There's no liquidity. You can never sell it for a year. I was like, why would I only get 6% for taking all of this risk when the U.S. government is giving me 5%?
No risk at all.
And in like New York State, there's taxes, right? There's state income taxes.
Right.
The 5% is not subject to those state income taxes.
Wow.
The 6% from this guy is subject to those state income taxes. And so I was like, go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
Now I see I do use that line a lot. Actually, I just realized I use that line a lot.
I'm going to make a button where you press it. Instead of saying that was easy, it's just going to be your voice.
Go fuck yourself.
Go fuck yourself.
That guy, I was like, this is an outrageous deal. And to be honest, like, I invest in a bunch of real estate still. And there are people who are like, look, we built this building and we leased it to Chipotle. And it'll cost you $3 million. And every year you'll make 5.5% of like your $3 million back. And, Chipotle is not going to go bankrupt anytime soon. So you're pretty safe. And I'm like, why would I do this? Well, at the end of this time period, first, I have a shitty building that Chipotle may not want anymore.
Right.
And it's specific to Chipotle. Second, if Chipotle may go bankrupt in the next 10 or 15 years, who knows what happens 10 years from now?
Right.
And third, the U.S. government is doing the same thing still. You cannot pay me 5.5% when the U.S. government is giving me 5%.
Tax free.
Go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
I get so angry when I see these things. So anyway, that happened. A couple other big things that happened. One is there's a new CEO of Honest, and the stock went up. I always when Steve Ballmer stepped down as CEO of Microsoft, the stock went up like 10% that day because everyone's like, this motherfucker is finally out of here. We got a person who's going to be able to run this business well. I just thought that was interesting. Honest Co stock went up. But here are the two things that I really want to talk about. Kevin O'Leary. Kevin O'Leary is Mr. Wonderful. He'd endorsed FTX for a long time.
Yeah.
And so he was doing an interview last week with this guy, Andrew Ross Sorkin, from the New York Times, who's on CNBC as well. And Andrew Ross Sorkin was like, how much did you lose in FTX? And he's like, I may have lost around $9 million. It might be zero. It's too early to tell. And he's like, you got paid for endorsing FTX.
How
much did you get paid?
$15 million, right?
$15 million. Yeah. That's right. Can you believe that?
That's insane.
Nobody
He's still to this day defending
FTX. Yeah, he absolutely is. And the amount of money he got paid for endorsing FTX is an absolutely ungodly amount of money. Yeah. And he's like, that's a different conversation. I'm like, people thought you got $50,000, $100,000, $200,000. You got paid $15 million. You might have lost $9 million. You're up a fortune.
Yeah.
This is better than any one of your Shark Tank investments. And it may be I don't know how rich Mr. Wonderful really is. I think a lot less rich than people assume.
Yeah.
This is a cash cow for him. This is a significant portion of the amount of money he earned in 2022. And I would challenge him to release his tax returns to prove me wrong there. I don't believe that it's not a significant portion of his income.
I mean, if you book a video on Cameo, it's $1,500. If you want him to make a video that you can run as an ad, it's $7,000. This guy
got $15 million for that.
Yeah, he definitely makes way more money off of, his TV persona.
For sure.
And the ability for him to get on CNBC and spew whatever than he does in any of the other.
Than a real businessman. Yeah. And SBF should have just paid him the $7,000 and then done it instead of paying him $15 million. Yeah. Terrible. Also, the other thing that came out was FTX was running their accounting on QuickBooks. Did you see that?
I saw that.
Can you believe that? On QuickBooks.
That's insane. And they were approving things with emojis.
That maybe they could give the thumbs up, the 100 or something like that. But QuickBooks, that's bananas to me.
Crazy.
Okay, one other thing I wanted to talk about in the lightning round was, Elon Musk is a free speech absolutist. He says he's a free speech absolutist. He bought Twitter. He was going to bring free speech to Twitter. That promise lasted for 30 days, I thought, when he said he prohibited Alex Jones from coming back on Twitter because he said anyone who uses the death of children for gain, political or financial, is unwelcome on Twitter, basically. Now, who uses the death of children as for political gain? That's determined by Elon Musk, which I thought was the death of the First Amendment, the free speech absolutism. Right. When all those children died in Sandy Hook, which was a terrible tragedy, the one that Alex Jones took advantage of, who else kind of took advantage of it? And I think in a right way, which was Barack Obama, who's like, we need gun reform and we need it today. Right. We just saw a classroom full of children slaughtered. It's unconscionable.
Right.
What he did is he tried to take advantage of it for political gain. You would say, I want, this tragedy should be used to make America better.
Right.
And, Barack Obama is and should be on Twitter, in my opinion. Where is the line of what someone does for political gain or what someone doesn't do for political gain is determined by Elon Musk.
Yeah.
And the other thing he did today was ban the Elon Musk Jet Twitter account. Did you see that?
I saw that. And it's all over the Truth Social app. That account is now the Elon Jet account to follow on Truth Social.
Oh, is that right?
Which rarely open, but...
wow, you have a Truth Social account? I admire
just
that.
To snoop and see what ads they're running, which are drop ship garbage. But yeah, it is kind of crazy. I think it's the reason Disney decided not to buy Twitter, which is who decides what is free speech and what is not free speech and where's the limit. And, even they had the head of trust and safety at Twitter. And, it's all right, well, fine. We assembled a team or we have a leadership organization completely dedicated to deciding what goes on and off Twitter. But it's then those guys are going to be the ones under scrutiny. Yeah. There's always going to be somebody, who's getting their balls chopped.
Yeah. I mean, look, I'm not saying it's an easy problem. I think it's an infinitely hard problem. In fact, I would never want to be this is the line that we draw and don't draw, because there are people who are going to be upset about it no matter what.
Right.
And like, the line that Elon Musk drew is somewhat noble. Like, noble is like, okay, we allow, Voltaire has this quote that says, I don't agree with what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it. And that's sort of where Elon Musk came out with the First Amendment. And, he was like, look, I don't agree with a lot of people on Twitter, but I'm going to let them, we need a safe haven for free speech, and Twitter will be that town square. And now I'm really curious to see how all these Silicon Valley elitists who were like, this is going to be great, we're going to defend free speech and go Elon Musk and Twitter, contort themselves in, the crazy, they're going to win gold medals in the gymnastics because they're going to contort themselves and say, this is fine, this is still within the bounds of free speech because, it's Elon Musk security, or, Alex Jones doesn't deserve it because he did do terrible things, which he did. Like, you have to contort yourselves to fit into this. It reminds me of that great Animal Farm saying, which is all animals are created equal,
right,
except some animals are more equal than others. Well, all free speech is welcome on Twitter, except some free speech that's, against what Elon Musk's views are.
Exactly.
Okay, let's move on to the final round, which is a bunch of stuff that we've seen about great brands. What are some great brands that you're loving right now?
Yeah, so there's one that I've been looking at more particularly because I think apparel, I think there's three categories that are really hard. Apparel, anything to do with scent, and anything with beverage. Scent and beverage, because you can't get a taste or a sniff of it before it arrives. And apparel, because you can't feel the quality. One brand that I love a lot is called Soft Serve Clothing. They're based out of San Diego. One of the co-founders is Indian, and his wife might be half Indian, who's the other co-founder and the CEO. But they do a phenomenal job when it comes to the site experience and making it a quick and easy site experience. The clothing is also just phenomenal clothing. The packaging it arrives in feels much more premium than I would say the site feels. And it's also a shirt that lasts through a bunch of washes.
And what's it called again? Soft Serve Clothing.
Yeah,
okay, that's a really interesting one.
Yeah.
Okay, mine is this company called Kizik, which is actually shoes for older people. At least I think it's meant to be shoes for older people. And so I bought my mom a pair of these shoes because I was like, you're getting old, and she's had some health troubles recently, and I was like, you need to walk more, and your knees used to hurt and all this kind of stuff. So I bought her these shoes to try out. My mom didn't love them right at the beginning, and I was like, you're going to wear these because we got to see if they're better for you or not. Mm-hmm. So far, she's liked them. She doesn't like the look of them, but she likes how they feel. But it was a brand that I randomly found because I was like, there's a direct-to-consumer brand that's focusing on shoes for older people. I bought my dad a pair of Adams.
Nice. Those are comfortable.
Those are really comfortable.
Yeah.
The hard part for older people is that they just don't like to bend down, or it's not safe, to be honest, to bend down when you're in your 80s or 70s or 90s or maybe even 60s when you're putting on a pair of shoes. The Adams story is really great. I'm not sure if you they were on Humans of New York. It's these two Pakistanis. I thought that was really great.
That's awesome. What about from a CRO standpoint? Who are some brands that you like?
Yeah. What I really liked, I was looking at this company called, Olipop.
Love Olipop.
I love Olipop as well. And I didn't realize
you have a favorite flavor? A favorite?
I like root beer. I have not tried cherry soda, which I tried to get, but I think it's only at Target or something like that. I haven't been able to find it. But what's really fun is when you're selecting a flavor, they change the entire color of the background as you're going through it. Do you know what I'm talking about? You select cherry soda and then the background turns red. You select grape and it turns purple. And, at Native, we never did anything this clever. And when I was going through it, I was like, oh, I wish I'd done something like this.
It's a small thing that makes a huge difference. And just makes it more exciting to click and even just discover other flavors.
Yeah, it makes it more, and it makes it very clear that you've changed flavors because you're like, the color has changed. What's going on here?
Right. The one I noted for CRO was Ridge, Ridge Wallet, Ridge.com. I think they just do a good job. I mean, their checkout does not feel like a Shopify checkout. And it also feels like a checkout that my grandma could go through and not get lost.
Really?
Which I think is the perfect barometer of good conversion rate optimization. But the other thing they do is they're so good at making sure every step is consistent. So for example, you get to their homepage right now, there's a 40% off sale. When you get to the slide out cart, it doesn't just say, here are some add-ons. It says, get up to 40% off popular add-ons. They remember to add that in specific to this sale. And then when you get to the checkout, it reiterates it again. You see the Norton Secured badge. You see, all these credit card logos at the bottom. You see easy access to click the refund policy. Everything that you could think of as a purchase objection is handled right there.
This guy who used to work at HelloFresh told me that the Trustpilot logo would actually result in increased sales.
Wow.
Which I always thought was bananas because I was like, I never trust Trustpilot.
Yeah, and the funniest thing too is like if you click and drag on the credit card logos, it's like one image.
Yeah. You know what's crazy? At Native, all the time, people would be like, I'm not going to buy from this company because there's no lock next to your credit card form.
Yeah.
And I was like, do you want me to put in the image of a lock? Is that what you prefer? Yeah. And that's exactly true. It does work. Like putting in the image of a lock and saying, this form, this is like secure and encrypted and protected by, an SSL certificate, which no one even understands because, we understand it, but a lot of people don't understand it, is actually really effective. You're talking about rich. I always thought that there could be a company that existed that catered to older people when it comes to e-commerce. Almost like Zappos, 1-800 number right at the top. Yeah. All the font is slightly big. All the checkout page, all the font is slightly bigger. Forget about CRO the way we think about it.
Yeah.
It's CRO in terms of like
Jitterbug
an old,
CRO.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Jitterbug CRO. I know how to complete checkout because there's one big button that says checkout and another one that says go back to the page that you were previous. It doesn't say back.
Right.
It says go back to the page you were previously on. That's what the button says,
Exactly.
Because like that way someone's not like back. What does back mean? They're like, oh, this is the last page that I was on.
Yeah.
And so I always thought that there was some sort of opportunity for someone to create an Amazon or some sort of an Amazon-like experience or direct-to-consumer experience.
Who does that is like if you've ever seen those like really scummy looking Taboola ads at the bottom of in the Taboola widget, and you click them and they're like a mile long sales page. I think they call them like a sales letter page or something like that, and it's like they're selling some kind of a spray that's going to make your immunity stronger or some kind of bullshit like that. But they cater towards that. They have the big pphotos with senior citizens holding hands, looking happy, big bright buttons, exaggerated reviews with big stars so you can see it all.
Yeah, there is opportunity there for people to like do that type of conversion rate optimization for a segment of the population that is growing like there's no tomorrow and is not catered to at all.
Exactly.
Okay, should we get to this Twitter question now or at the beginning of the next episode? I think it should be longer, which is like, it should be a longer response. So I'd love to do it at the beginning of the next one.
Yeah, let's do it at the next one.
Okay, yeah. And the question is really how to determine what product to launch. We've got a bunch of listeners to this podcast and some are starting brands or some are doing less than $1 million or starting and they haven't launched a product. Some are doing 5 million and some guys are doing 100 million. And I think like a lot of people who are starting are like, how do I determine what product? I want to run an e-commerce business. I've got 40 ideas and I have no idea what to start. How do I decide what to start? And I think this will be a great longer answer that'll take up a bunch of the next episode, but I think we can do a great job here.
Totally. What else are we talking about on the next episode? I'd love to talk about, there's a cool report on Business of Fashion that came out around checkouts across different luxury brands that are more efficient and less efficient.
Oh,
so I was
great. I didn't see that.
And bring some
Let's
examples for that.
Wow, that's great. Conversion rate optimization is so undervalued.
Super undervalued. And a lot of times too, like people build sites with branding agencies or a website agency, whatever it is, even if it's just like a Shopify theme that they customize, and then they don't iterate on it. It's like you buy a car and then you don't put gas in it to continue driving. Yeah.
And like, the ways, there's so many ways to iterate, right? Which is you've launched a new product. You've got to figure out ways to cross-sell those products.
Right.
You've got to figure out new funnels and new landing pages for the new products you've launched because they may perform better than the old products.
Yeah.
And it's not just like CRO on your website. You got to change your email flows to reflect the fact that you've got new products and you want to cross-sell them. And you're like, hey, turns out the people who buy Olipop Cherry Cola also want this flavor, like this cherry, cherry vanilla as well. Like, you've got to think about it constantly. And particularly brands that are doing like sub $1 million or $2 million, just never think about it. And it's so important because like, if you're trying to figure out ads and they're not working, there's a decent chance that it's your landing page and you're not doing the right type of conversion rate optimization and people don't know how to go through the journey of purchasing rather than just being a problem of creative on Facebook.
Yeah. Another thing I want to chat through is there's a platform I got a demo of today where you can basically plug in not only your Shopify and your ad accounts, but you can actually API plug in your apps. So Okendo for reviews or, your subscription platform, any kind of other apps that you use, you can actually integrate those into this one platform. And what it'll do is it'll help you score, kind of like what you're saying about knowing if a cherry cola customer is more valuable than a root beer customer. It'll help you understand, for example, all right, if somebody leaves an Okendo review, that type of customer, their LTV is predicted here versus a customer that comes in, buys once, and maybe buys this flavor, their predicted LTV is here.
That's awesome. That's such useful knowledge.
Yeah.
That makes me think of this one other, we always talked about a $5,000 business. Someone could charge us $5,000 to do a pixel audit. Someone could probably charge me $10,000 to do a Klaviyo audit, which is, are all my links working? Does one email in the flow have a really low open rate versus another email for some reason or another? Because, you set those flows up and then you forget about them.
Yep.
And if you're a small business doing $8 to $10 million a year,
don't look at it.
You never think about it because you're just like, okay, these flows are getting me some sales, but am I doing enough touch points? Like, am I emailing you day 30 and then day 90 and forgetting about all those days in between?
Yep.
Is there a product I no longer sell a part of that flow? Is there new products that I've forgotten to put as part of these flows? And I think someone could do a $10,000 Klaviyo audit and be like, here are things that we think you should improve on your site. Like, you don't have a welcome flow for SMS.
Right.
You need one for SMS just like you do for emails.
Right.
And so I think there's a lot of value there.
Awesome. All right. Well, that's a wrap for episode 11, and we'll see you on the last episode of this season next week.
Sounds great. Looking forward to it. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back next time to cut through the noise in CPG, retail, and e-commerce.
And if you enjoyed this episode, then why not share it with a friend? And be sure to subscribe wherever you listen so you don't miss the next one.